Hey, what's going on guys? It's Max Chroma with another tutorial video. In this video, I'm going to continue along with the series of doing color separations with 3DLUTS or Color Lookup Tables in Adobe Photoshop. And this will be the third and probably final video in this series because I'm going to be getting to the limit of what I can do with the LUTs to get to different colors. And so in the previous video, we extracted the 6 hues plus black and white. So let's just go ahead into Photoshop with my color test pattern, which helps me to make sure that what I'm extracting is the correct extraction that would work on any image in the same way. And I'm going to go ahead and try to use some adjustment layers to extract possibly just the black and gray and white that work with each other. Let's just start with the gray. So it's actually going to be pretty simple. I'm going to create a new solid color layer. Set this to 0 in the hue, doesn't really matter as long as it's 0% saturated, so all the way over to the left here, and 50% brightness. That's a middle gray. And then I'm going to set this to a difference blending mode. And it looks kind of funny, but what we're getting is basically the gray is now black, so it's not different at all from the gray on the fill layer here, the gray below. And then I'm just going to do another adjustment layer, black and white mode, set to maximum white. Okay, and so now I've converted all of those other hues to basically a white, but in this case they all go to a gray. They were all a little bit shaded. So everything becomes gray that we don't want. And in order to eliminate that, we'll just put another solid color fill layer. Again, we'll set that to just 50% gray. And I'm going to tell this to divide. Okay, so that actually divides mathematically out all of the medium grays. It's almost like a levels. I could also use levels, but this will be a little bit more accurate without having to set the levels in it. So this would be my gray. I'm going to go ahead and do File, Export, Color Lookup Tables. We'll call this Max Chroma Color Separation LUTs Gray, or we'll say medium gray. And we'll just say OK with that. And maybe I'll copy this first. OK, and then I'll go to the desktop where I had that folder, Max Chroma Color Separation LUTs, and make sure it's kind of in the same naming. Let's go ahead and just do paste. Max Chroma Color Separation LUTs, medium gray. So we'll do save on that. Okay, so that one wasn't too hard, but we need to make the black and white so that they don't overlap the gray. So if we're going to use the gray in the separation we're going to do with black and medium gray and white, we need to make one where we essentially create a gray. So I'm just going to delete these. We're going to make a black that doesn't have the gray in it. And it's kind of easy to do through this trick. If I go to black and white, let's say I'm going to do maximum white. If I were to divide the gray out of this, I would end up eliminating the shades and the grays. But I can control where all those hues are moving to, so I'm just going to make them to 50%. So instead of all going to maximum white, they're all going to go to a neutral gray. Hit OK, and then I can just put this gray solid fill layer over it. Hit OK, and set that to divide. So there we have a black which still generates shades, but it does not generate gray. It's going to fade out all the way to where the gray takes over. Okay, let's go ahead and do File, Export, Color Lookup Tables. We'll just paste that in and we'll say black for gray. Hit OK, and maybe I'll copy that first. Hit OK. Go to that Color Separation LUTs folder. Paste that into the name, save it, and it's generated, done. Now to do the white, I'm really just going to take this and, I could look at this as maximum black and do the same thing, but really it's like, I kind of want to keep it where it was and just invert the image first. So it's a little easier this way. Set those all to 50. We'll put an invert in first. So we're essentially inverting the image. Now what was white is black. we'll do that same black and white adjustment layer. All of it goes to 50. Do the divide again, and now we've got the white. So it was a really easy trick of just inverting the original image. Okay, so we'll do File, Export, Color Lookup Tables, paste this in, and we'll say white for gray. Copy that one. There we go. And paste that file name in and make sure I go to the right folder. Color separation LUTs. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and update that folder where it is on the PayHip page, where I've put the new product that has the color separation LUTs for free download, and you can also just watch in this video how I'm doing it. And in order to get to some of the other hues, okay, it might not actually be possible for me to do it all with just adjustment layers. You know, as I think I showed in one of the other videos, let's say I tried to use the selective color and I want to go ahead and make the reds to 100% black on the absolute scale, yellows negative 100%, greens, cyans, like so. Take everything else and negative 100. So that gives me the red. If I want to shift the hue first, let's put a hue and saturation adjustment. So I could kind of move this around and get to the other hue extractions. But if I go ahead and set this negative 30 degrees to get to the orange, this is not an orange that blends correctly where it stops at the red and stops at the yellow. And we might think, well, can we go ahead and put a divide over that like this? And I'm kind of taking you guys along the process of how I would try to figure it out. And I know this one's not going to work. It's going to cut too much stuff out. It cuts out the right amount of hues. And, you know, what if I did the one the other day with the hues? But honestly, I think with this one, I may just have to use the hue and saturation adjustments before and kind of extract it out. Let me think if I can go ahead and get that chroma. If I can get this to be the chroma in white. So let's try to, you know, because you can take the hue and saturation adjustment layer and not shifting the hue at all. I can go ahead and go to the reds and actually move this over and make it start at 29 degrees right here with the ramp, end at 0 degrees. And I can make this one over here ending at 60, which is yellow. And this right here going at just to 31. And then I can shift all of that to black, okay? And maybe go to the next thing and do a black and white and do maximum white. But you see that there's still black included in everything, right? So I'm knocking out all the other hues. You can see it looks correct over in just the hue angles, right? That's the correct ramp for an orange that blends to yellow and blends to red. But we got all the black in there still. So maybe we can remove the blackness from this first. And one of the tricks to do that is, I think we set a black and white mode to maximum white, tell it to be difference, okay? And what this is essentially doing, or I mean, maybe if I do it as maximum black difference, well, what happens is that's all going to black, right? If I invert this, even though the hues are correct, if I invert it, it's going to invert the hues. So actually I want to stay where I was, maximum white, and then put an invert in here. And there we go. We've got the chroma, right? And, you know, I might as well save this out as its own LUT first, or in order to not delete what I've already created here, let's look at the hue saturation. I'm going to undo that. I actually need the other one in there too. So the hue saturation that converts the oranges to blackness, and then all of the other hues to white. There we go. We've got it. I didn't really think we could get to it, but yep, this is one of the older techniques I used to use to extract the hues using the HSL tool. So that's pretty cool. We can go ahead and start making the 12 hue adjustments. And maybe what I want to do is just make sure in this right here, I'm going to actually make sure it starts at 1 degrees, ends the ramp at 1, and ends the ramp at 59. There we go. Just to be sure that it's pretty accurate. It's not exactly the same as doing it through some other techniques, but this way we can do all of the hues. Okay, if I put in a hue shift first, you can see I can get all of the hues. Like the red would be like this, where it blends and stops at the orange and stops at the rose. So each of the 12 hue separations can be done this way. Let me just not have that. We're going to do it in a different technique. I mean, I could do it this way. It all boils down with the color separation LUTs to work this way. So, you know, maybe I'll keep that hue adjuster in there, but not for this one. Let's go ahead and do File, Export. And again, as long as you have one background locked layer, it's only going to look at the adjustment layers you've been doing here. So, okay, I'm going to go to File, Export, Color Lookup Tables. Let's paste this in here, and we're going to call it 12 hues, orange. Copy that. Go to the desktop, back to this folder, paste. Okay, very cool. We've generated a 12 hue orange LUT, or 3D LUT, color lookup table file. And if I want to maybe duplicate the image just to check it and make sure, let's go to this, load in color lookups. Again, I've got those ones from before loaded in the default folder. I'm going to have to load these ones from the new folder on the desktop. Check out the 12 hues orange. Boom. All in one step. Combined in, it does the color separation of the orange. Okay, so let's just close that and we can continue along, make all the other ones. And, you know, there's two ways to do it. I could open up this and go to here and just move this so it's actually directly changing those. Or I could shift the hue first on a different adjustment layer, but I think I want to boil it down to fewer adjustment layers. So I'm just going to move this along. I don't know if I can get them both. Usually when you have it like this, you can move the whole thing, you know, where the mouse cursor gets in there, but I might as well just do it this way. I'm going to look at these to go to 331 and like so. It's about 29 to 331. And then this is going to have to be 359 to 1 on that side. 1 degree. So it's like the solid point is right there, and then it fades out to that point at the 29 degrees. And you can kind of see what I'm saying. So yeah, it goes 0 or 360 is the red. We're making that black with the lightness slider. And the other ones, it's fading out past the 345 here and ending at 331. And this one is, you know, fading out. It's like it's 50% at the 15 degree point for red orange. And then it's 0% once it finally reaches the 30 degrees of orange. So this would be the 12 hues red, right? Export color lookup tables. 12 hues red. Copy that, hit OK. Let's go over here. Color separation LUTs. Paste it in, 12 hues red. We've got that one. Open this back up. Go here. And I think I can move this that way. We're going to have one that goes from 301 to about 359. And then from 329, come on, okay, to about 331. The reason I can't set it to 330 is they'll push each other over if I do that. So this will go to 330, start to push that one over a bit to 330 or 332. I can't have them both set to the same 330 degrees. But this is good enough, really. So let's just hit OK and export another color lookup table. Rose is the name of that hue. We're going to do rose. And now we'll go back to this and just keep going. along the color ramp. Next we have to do the magenta, and it's really different from the other magenta for the 6 hues that would blend into red, blend into blue. This one has to stop at the rose and stop at the violet. So again, I want this to kind of be 271, and these are things I've memorized where these points are. 270 degrees is violet, 330 degrees is rose, so that's going to end at 329. This 301, I'll just make it 299, and 307, I'm going to push it over to 301. Right there. And like I said, I could make this a little easier by going to putting in a hue shift right there first and shift it around. But, you know, honestly, I want to make sure that whatever's happening when it creates the LUTs is doing as few steps as possible. So maybe that just saves it a little bit. And, you know, you only have to do this once. I'm creating these LUTs. We're going to save them. They're going to be available for free. And why not just take a little time? That's kind of the purpose behind all these actions that I create, where it does take a lot of time to go and record some of these actions and create some of these steps that go in a lot further to the tints, the shades, the multiple levels of tones, the extra hues, 12 hues, 24 hues, doing all that interlocking stuff. But once it's done, it all works the same because I kind of go based on a ruler that's kind of like an image that has just about everything in it. It's going to work based on the color model. So once it's done, it's going to be something I just click and run an action or load one of these LUTs, and it works the same for everything else. You know, why not go ahead and take the time to do it right and, you know, just have it in there, something we can use going forward. So anyway, we've got, where was it? This one. Make sure it's 271 to 299, 301 to 329, File, Export, Color Lookup Table. We're going to paste this in 12 hues magenta. And same thing here, Desktop, Color Separation LUTs, paste, 12 hues magenta. Go to the next one. And I'm maybe just opening this up so I can move it quicker right over to the violets. So 269 to 271 on here. And then this is going to be 241, 240 degrees is the blue. And then to 299 because 300 is the magenta. So there's the violet. And, you know, this is what I'm saying is by having a test pattern, which I've actually put the name of the violet color, and that's the violet hue here, and this is where it blends out to the black and white, right? By having that stuff in, I know what I'm doing is actually extracting the correct gradient. Okay, here we go. File, Export, Color Lookup Tables. And so, you know, I think that's maybe one of the things that helped me in discovering all this stuff was instead of just looking at every particular image as everything's different, if you start to look at things with a ruler image, let me copy that. You know, it's kind of like if you're going to be creating a building from some blueprints, you want to make sure you have your rulers and your weights and your scales and your levels all calibrated correctly. So you know that what you're building is going to be true, it's going to be level, it's going to follow the blueprints more accurately. So if we have something like color test patterns, and then we look at stuff like even going into some of those other color lookup tables, and this is something I might just show really quickly. If I load one of these color lookups, maybe let's just load the 12 hues violet and make sure that's working correctly. Yep. But let's go ahead and look at some of those ones that I put in the other folder, the Photoshop default LUTs. And I want to look at all of the files. Maybe it won't show, or maybe I can just tell it to do asterisk dot asterisk. Okay, yeah. Let's kind of look at that, and we can see, so what does the two-strip lookup table do? It's apparently just letting mostly the reds through and the cyans through, and forcing a lot of the other hues to just be mixtures of red and cyan. Okay, and so on a photograph, you'd see it produce something interesting with reds and cyans, but you wouldn't necessarily know exactly that this is what it's doing to the image. If we load in another one, I'll just do a couple of them to double check, you know, something like drop blues, you can see what it's doing. It's actually turning some of them to like a violet or just a darker shade of blue. It's getting rid of all that, right? Let's load another one. Edgy amber. Okay, and so based on this color test file, we can see what it's really doing to the image. And when you're looking at other types of photographs, yeah, you'll see this conversion, but certain colors we wouldn't know, you know, exactly how it's operating. So based on something like a color test pattern, that's a lot of the stuff that helped me to discover all these other ways to extract things from an image and work with an image as colors, is because I spent a lot of time creating these test files, creating these patterns. Some of them are kind of cool, they're artistic, but you know, it's also based on some science and some math, right? So this is all kind of a combination of art and science, but there's a lot of usefulness and different purposes we can have for this. But let's just continue along. For the next one, we're gonna make the blue, the 12 hues blue. Let me go ahead to that. Move this right along to right there. So it's 239, 241, and this is going to be to 211 and to 269. 211 is because Azure Blue is the 210, and you can see right here, yep, I've got the blue fading out there and there. Let's go ahead and do the next export. Okay, paste this in, we'll call it blue. Let's go right here. That's done. Let's double click this again. Move it along to the 209 and 211. And that's 181 because 180 degrees is cyan, and 239 on this side right here. So it goes 211 to 239. Even though the numbers are over here, it's really talking about what's happening with these sliders. And let's just go ahead and close this file, export, color lookup tables, select all that, paste it in, Azure. I'm gonna have to look up the pronunciation of that one of these days and figure it out. So put in here, I like Azure, that's really fun. Okay, we'll put it in this file. Yep, we've got the violet, we've got the blue. Okay, Azure, I don't really know. You know, let's look it up someday. We'll figure it out. Okay, maybe someone can correct me in the comments. That'd be pretty fun. All right, we'll go to this one and we'll move this over right to there, and then move this. So it's kind of crossing both sides. This is 181, that's 179. This one is 151 right here, and this one's 209, so that's correct. Cyan, that blends to the Azure and the mint. File, export, color lookup table. We've got cyan. Copy, okay. And we've got this cyan. Done. Next one. And this one is going to be, I'm going to move this over just a little, and then I can drag this all over here. And we've got 151 to 179 and 149. I'm looking at that number here to 121. Okay, there's the mint. And we're going to go export, color lookup table. Mint green. I don't really call them all greens because it's like they kind of are a greenish color, but I consider mint to be its own hue at 150 degrees. And let's hit OK. Because it'd be a little bit confusing. I mean, if you call it lime green mint green, it kind of starts to get confusing with the fact that I already have some of those things named. Did I put the cyan in the right place? Yeah, okay. Save it. It starts to get a little confusing because of the fact that on this particular model, I've got red and orange, and then the in-between 15 degrees is just red-orange, so with a hyphen. Orange and yellow, this some people might call it a gold color, golden yellow, but for me it's just technically between 30 degrees right here, orange, and 60 degrees yellow, so it's 45 degrees or orange hyphen yellow, orange dash yellow. So what I was saying before is there's a lime already at 90 degrees and a green at 120. This is lime green. So if I were to call this one lime green, I would start to confuse that this one's the blend of lime and green. Same thing, mint, mint cyan, right? Cyan azure, blue, azure. I don't call this one azure blue because azure blue to me is 225 degrees. It's in between the two, right? Okay, let's just keep going with that. So mint by itself. The next one we're going to do is the true green. And let me grab this. Set this right here. Let's just move that a little bit. Drag this over. Doing it so this one says 119. And then that's going to say 91. This one's going to now just get moved over to 121 and 149. So that's the green. That is the 12 hues green as opposed to the 6 hues green. This blends to the mint and then stops at the lime. File, export, color lookup tables. So, you know, I mean, you guys, if you're watching along with this, you're, you know, probably saying, geez, he's going through every one of these. But, you know, if you want to learn how I'm doing this, that's fine. If you just want to download the file after, that's easy too. I'm kind of opening it up a little bit to the behind the scenes, how I make the actions, how I'm creating these color lookup table things. You know, I want this to all be as open as possible, not just provide a product and some sort of mysterious secret sauce as to how it's done, or just sell something without the ability of other people to know, you know, what's going on that is behind how it gets created. Okay, so this is now the 12 hues green. And the reason why I don't set this to maximum 256 is it creates a file that is really like 500 megabytes or something, and it doesn't seem to create that much more better of a quality for the final, you know, precision of what's, for most purposes, this is going to be fine at just regular high 64. What seems to happen if you have a maximum one, you try to load that LUT and it takes way too long for it to load. These ones don't seem to take that long. And I'm doing them in 16-bit just to make sure. I don't think that they really save in 8 or 16-bit as the final lookup tables. It's just RGB numbers. But, you know, hopefully it's just something that provides a little more quality of the file I'm actually working on to see what I'm doing. And maybe it translates to where it'll just get downsampled to 8-bit later. So let's just go ahead and save this one as green. Desktop, and we've got, oh, I already, no, we got 12 hues. I didn't do the 12 hues green yet. Okay, so we'll just paste this in 12 hues green. Okay, next thing is going to be moving this over to the lime. So 89 degrees here to 61, and this one's going to be 91. Oh, you see what happened? So I pushed it over too far and it pushed that to 88. I got to bring that back to 89. This is really tiny in the interface here. It's kind of hard to work with, but once we're done, we don't have to go to this. We'll just pull up this guy and it'll load all correctly. So hit OK or just close that. I guess I don't even have to close that. Color lookup tables. We're going to call this lime, 12 hues lime. Go to that folder. Done. And you know, one thing I will do, let's go ahead and double check. Let's duplicate the file, delete all these, set the file to 8-bit, and make sure that when I load these color lookup tables, they load correctly. Let's do the 12 hues lime, even in 8-bit. Yep, still loads in an 8-bit file. Okay. Let's just go to this and move this along one more time. So now we're going to have the yellow. So 31 to 59. And this one is 61 to 89. File, export. Let's call it 12 hues yellow. Hit OK. Go to this. And 12 hues yellow. Hit save. There we go. We're done with that. I think I'm going to stop the video at this point. Maybe actually I'll just go ahead and make this one the chroma. Let's do file, export, color lookup table. Color separation LUTs. This is chroma in color to white. Yep, that looks good. Hit OK. Go to that folder. Save that one. And another cool one sometimes is, let's just not invert it. Let's just go ahead and do, where is it? Maximum black. Okay, so even with just this adjustment, this would be the chroma in color fading out to black. Export color lookup table. Chroma in color to black. Could be useful for someone. I think it's useful artistically sometimes when you take an image and just throw this on there. Let's go ahead and save that. And maybe there's another one. We already did the full hue reveal in a previous video. You know, I think it's kind of cool to do a hue reversal. This is all the hues inverted, but the black and white is the same. And it could kind of go either way. It really is the same no matter which way you go. You're 180 degrees. So that's kind of cool. I think it's just kind of artistic. Let's go ahead and export that color lookup table. This is hues inverted. We'll say all hues inverted color lookup table. That's kind of cool. Desktop right here. Paste that like so. Okay, and maybe one more. I want to have the, I'll just put that on again. Maximum white, set the blending mode to difference, and do the invert. And then I want to take this black and white maximum black. There we go. That is all of the chroma in grayscale. So that's the Chroma Gradient, which you'd use sometimes to create some of the other ones, like the tints and the shades and the tones. You'd overlap the chroma with the black to get shades, the chroma with the tint, or the chroma with the white to get tints. Let's go ahead and just do that one as well. This is chroma in grayscale. Hit OK. Desktop right here. Chroma in grayscale. All right, very cool. I think we're done with this video for now. We may take a look at, there might be a part 4 where I try to get in and see if I can do some of the shades and tints. I really don't think I can get to that. It's very difficult when going in and essentially trying to take it, you know, there's a lot of stuff where I start making multiple layers. So, you know, let's say I were to use these in the process. I could do color lookup, load the one that is the chroma in grayscale, right? And then, you know, I could actually have this be a layer. So let's take that as a group. This is the chroma in grayscale. And then this guy right here, I'm going to go ahead and do color lookup table, load. I want to do the black, like so. Group that together. Blackness. And then, like I said before, if I take the blackness over the chroma in grayscale and I set that to lighten, I'm actually going to get the shades. This is a certain type of shade that blends all the way over. This would be like shades where you don't have tints and other things. If you wanted to produce something, it wouldn't be the same as the chroma without. It's just like the gray. We're making the gray between the black and the white, and we don't want that to work where the black, we want the black to fade out to that gray. So right now this chroma fades into that and this black fades into that. So this particular one, I could make a new layer and call that the shade as light. And then if I take the chroma, okay, and then take the shade as light, I'm going to put that on a separate layer. So if I put this over that guy and we do, it's not, yeah, just if I do divide, you see how it knocks out the chroma fading to there. And then if I take the same thing over the blackness and do divide, so there we've got the blackness that works for the shade being there, and we have the chroma that works for the shade being there. But you see how all this stuff I have to do through using multiple copies of the layers and then using the blend modes. So it's not all done with just adjustment layers over a locked background. So I don't know, we'll save that for some other videos and see. The whole point of me getting into these LUTs and color lookup tables is seeing what is the extent to how I can process something with just one step, or am I going to have to, you know, get into multiple steps? And that's the whole purpose behind the actions, in which I go through and duplicate the layers and start processing the layers together and working with them as different blending modes to get to those other extractions. And so if we can't really do it all with a bunch of adjustment layers on one background layer, then we reach the limit, right? It's kind of the limit of what we can do with the LUTs, and then that's why I get into the actions. Now all this stuff can still be done through the processing code, but like I showed in another video, in working with the processing code, I'm a little bit limited to just opening files, saving them, working with other stuff that's within Photoshop by default, like adjusting the masks. It starts to reach a little bit of a real-time limit in how many layers you've got going on, or it's rebuilding the layers and compositing them together. So this is all kind of these different ways of getting about to similar results, but sticking within Photoshop for some of this stuff just enables me to have all that other graphics tools, you know, going in and brushing the masks or changing the masks. It gives me all that other ability to stay within a graphics application, but then use the actions to just enhance some of the capabilities, give me more access to the things like the colors, convert to some of those halftone things when you start to go real high resolution. You know, Photoshop is handling a lot of that for me. So I don't have to reinvent the wheel, let's say. I can just enhance what's already available. And that's the purpose of the actions, going beyond what's possible with the LUTs. But I'm going to go ahead and update that file. Let me go ahead and just show you guys real quick. Okay, on the Max Chroma, the payhip.com/Max Chroma webpage. And I'm going to go ahead and adjust the design of how this is laid out. I'll probably put it in underneath here. The Max Chroma Color Separation LUTs pack. I'm going to basically go in and there's the videos. I'll add the third video in the series, but I'm going to go in and update the file, the zip file, to include all of the LUTs that we just created, the 12 HUES ones that we made in this video. And that's it for this particular video. We'll get into some more stuff and start getting into writing the actions, showing you guys more behind the scenes and doing the updates that I'm creating. And as always, the updates that go into the master colorizer that enhance it to do halftones and smart detection of the halftones, doing other smart processing. That stuff is always free updates for life. $25 gets you the one-time purchase where you don't have to pay again for any of the future updates to that program. Thanks for watching and stay tuned for more videos.